thanks very much for coming out. I know it's a little hard to hear. I'll count on the sound crew to help with that. So as I think about kind of my career so far, to me the end piece is the most interesting part of what I do. I think it's become a springboard for me personally and professionally. It's been a boon to the enterprise, and particularly where I am right now. So over the next few minutes, I hope that I will provide you with either things to think about, things to think differently about, and most importantly, help you think about what your end might be and how to get there. All right, so I'll give you just a little bit about how I got to where I am now. So started just up the road here at Northwestern. Went to school gung-ho, I'm gonna be a lawyer. Week one into classes, I thought, God, this reading is so boring. I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I do find it hilarious. What do I do now? I read contracts and I read leases. So I couldn't get away from it. But from school was recruited to work for A.T. Kearney. Company at the time was, and I think may still be headquartered here. They talked about all this strategic work we were going to be doing for these companies. Nobody said anything about procurement. Nobody said anything about strategic sourcing. All we did was procurement and strategic sourcing. The first project I worked on, and so some of what, you'll probably get a sense of, some of this is serendipity, dumb luck, being in the right place at the right time. The first project I worked on was a sub-team for a large bank that had just gone through an acquisition, and they were, they asked us to do a ton of sourcing work around construction materials. So kind of the first project I worked on linked to the real estate space. Left there, I did not drive a garbage truck, but I did go to work for Waste Management. What was interesting there was that was my time at Kearney. I got deals done and I handed it off to some sort of internal team, and I never knew if the stuff we negotiated actually worked. So being at Waste Management gave me more of that tactical, hey, you've got to live with this stuff. And there were a bunch of great learnings I took from that. From there, went to what was Bank One on the heels of a merger with First Chicago, NBD. I may be dating myself if some of you don't remember those banks. My primary stakeholder, I was part of the procurement team, but my primary stakeholder was the internal corporate real estate department. The three largest deals I worked on there were outsourcing agreements for real estate transactions, facilities management, and project management. At that time, I think that facilities management agreement was the largest outsourcing deal. This goes back to I think like the early 2000s, and right, so it was, I don't know, $250, $500 million worth of facilities management outsourcing. Moved over, I did not become a professional soccer player. I did go over to Aon, also here in Chicago. Again, my primary internal I stayed in procurement and sourcing. My primary internal stakeholder was real estate. But again, just being the right guy in the right place at the right time. Working with my stakeholders, they were talking about a situation on Long Island where I grew up. And there were 6 offices due to acquisition, 6 offices within a few miles of each other. And all the leaders on Long Island had these great stories why they couldn't possibly be combined. And I just raised my hand and said, none of that's true. Like, this will absolutely work. And if we can get down to 1 lease, here's how much I think we'll save. And we pulled it off. After a number of years at Aon, I moved over to Orbitz, where I explicitly had the role of a VP of both procurement and real estate. Wildly different real estate portfolio, tech company, actually very small headcount, but lots of little offices all over the world. And it very much became a strategy of, sort of cash deployment. Let's set up shop in a WeWork until we hit some critical mass, and then we'll make a longer term investment. So about 10, 11 years ago, I did not go to play hockey. Came over to Hub International as the first chief procurement officer. So it was a very interesting interview because half of the people that interviewed me for the role didn't even work for Hub. So one was a board member from our private equity owner, and another was another CPO from another portfolio company that the private equity firm owned. And um, the what moved Hub in that direction at that time, great revenue trajectory. They were buying businesses left and right. We buy 3 to 5 businesses every month. That number has been bigger. We hit 15 one month. I don't know how we did it. COVID did not slow us down. So the growth by acquisition has absolutely been exponential. The guidance from the board and the PE ownership was, hey, we think Hub as an organization, you're doing a great job with your revenue plan. We think you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You should look at this procurement thing. The CFO didn't know what they were talking about. That was how I got there. One of the folks that interviewed me was our chief accounting officer. And at the time we were consolidating from each entity. We had 25 divisions. Each one had their own finance and accounting shop. They were consolidating all those functions into one and taking those away from the field. They were working on a design, struggling with some things, and the chief accounting officer literally said to the CFO, hey, didn't we just hire a guy who did real estate someplace else? Why don't we have him take a look at this? And that was sort of the springboard, right? Like that was all I needed. Got my foot in the door there, and you know, I'll talk a little bit now about sort of what I did. You know, the first thing is I found a void that I knew I could fill. As I looked into beyond just this one location, what was happening at Hub, we had a legal team that was only looking at, do we have a valid lease? Nobody asked, are we paying the right amount? Are we in the right market? Does the capital expense make sense for what we're doing? Nobody looked at the actual layout, the layout of the space, and are there ways that you can save money? Right, very simple concept. You don't put your break room on the opposite end of the building as where your bathroom is. It's really expensive to move all that plumbing across 25,000 feet. We also kind of part of the pitch was we can design better spaces. Right, we can design a space that's more enjoyable for the folks that work there. So then it was about creating the pitch. Right, I can do this. Here's how I'm going to do this. And along with that was this was not some sort of money grab. It was, hey, if I'm going to have these conversations with landlords and with facility managers, you got to change my title, because nobody understands why the hell they're talking to the procurement guy about should we lease this space or that space. Next, most important, right? Align it with your goals. I had a savings target when I came in. It was just a number. No one said these were the categories you have to get it from. So my conversation with the CFO was easy, right? Here's how much I think we could save just by looking at things like a cost per square foot, a square foot per employee metric, right? Nobody was looking at why does this office have, right, the cubes are 10 by 10 and this one, the private offices are 20 by 20. So by providing some benchmarks that I had from prior roles as well as, right, other industry data, was able to make a case for, hey, even if we shrink our space, we don't have to be best in class. If we get 1 foot in the schoolhouse, right, we could take $100 million spend to $90 million pretty easily. So, you know, linking it to that savings target was absolutely critical. And then the next step, and there were a few other groups that were talking about this today, right? Change the conversation, make it about value, not savings, right? We're private equity owned. The way they look at everything we do is it's a multiple on EBITDA. Every $1 million we save, right, is, let's call it a 15x when they go to sell. So beyond just savings, right, change the dialogue to value. And I'll get into that in a minute here. On top of that, though, like I said, was better workspaces, better governance, better operating efficiency. And we had put forth I think we said we could get to a certain number from a cost reduction perspective in about 5 to 7 years based on when leases would turn over, and we did it in 1.5 years, right? So it was very, very successful. The value creation is always going to be greater than savings. You should not only take credit but demand the credit that you deserve. This is the type of thing that's going to suck the audience in, right? So the CFO sure likes the cost savings conversation, but your CEO and the board loves the value creation conversation. So, like I said, valuation, a function of EBITDA. The example I'll give you here, depending on your firm, the business you're in. I'm just going to keep the math easy. Got a bright light here, so assume it's 15x times your EBITDA, right? And if you deliver $20 million in annualized savings, you did a lot more than saving $20 million, right? I'll have Cuba help me out here, right? $300 million, the price tag for your firm just went up by if someone's going to come in and buy your business, right? This is real money. It gets away from the procurement people only do savings stuff. The other challenge we've got is with those 5+ acquisitions every month, the rate at which we're growing, it's unrealistic to think we're going to have only hard dollar savings, right? So you've got to change the conversation. So I would say my challenge to all of you is find your end, right? Whatever that may be. This example happens to be real estate. I'm a tangible guy, proudly or not, the only guy to get a 0 on the AP Physics exam in here. Maybe not. But like, real estate for me clicked. I would encourage you all, look bigger, look broader, follow your passions, right? Don't think about it as growing your share of the pie, own the bakery. You can absolutely do this. And as I think about, things that help me moving from procurement or procurement and real estate, like us as practitioners, right? We can do all of these things. And there was actually one of the folks I spoke with on the panel earlier, talked about his firm makes the management trainees, they make them rotate through procurement, which I thought was fantastic, right? Because every one of these skills is a bridge to some other opportunity in your organization. The other thing I like to think about us and the role we play, right? I don't care which supplier we pick. I don't care which building we pick. Is it the right one for the organization, right? That to me is the most important thing. So sort of neutrality, objectivity. I don't lose any sleep over the decisions that we make if it's the right one for the business. I also had a manager who once said to me, what's unique about folks in procurement, we connect the dots. The number of times I've been in meetings with my own firm and people that have been there way longer than me, and I'll talk about someone or some department, they don't know what it is, they don't know who they are, right? Our team touches absolutely everything, and that gives you, I think all of you as practitioners, a unique perspective. So the last thing I'll offer up, this is just a list I put together based on some people I know, right? Whatever your end is, it is a broad universe. These are all things that I know other procurement people are doing, maybe doing, thinking about doing, have been experts in, or doing more than one of the things on this list. Some of these, admittedly, definitely easier in a manufacturing role than, my experience has been more on the indirect side. So don't get too excited, but some of those things are absolutely yours for the taking. Right. So again, my challenge to you is ask why not you. The room next door is waiting, and it's time for you to walk in. That's all I got. Hopefully I stayed on time, and I thank you.